all across America and around the world. This is Veterans Radio. This is Veterans Radio.
Welcome to Veterans Radio. I am Jim Fausone. I'm the officer of the deck today. We've got some great programs for you. We always want to remind you you can find more about Veterans Radio at its Facebook site or at the web, veteransradio.org, where we're on the web 24/7. You can find a lot of our podcasts there as well. We post new ones every Tuesday, so you can get a new story, a new interview, something you didn't know before by going to veteransradio.org. And before we get started, we want to thank our sponsors. First up, we want to thank National Veteran Business Development Council, nvbdc.org. It was established to certify both service-disabled and veteran-owned businesses. You'll find out how they can help your business by going to nvbdc.org. We want to thank Legal Help for Veterans. Legal Help for Veterans fights for veterans' disability rights all across the nation. You can reach them at 800-693-4800 or on the web at legalhelpforveterans.com. And finally, PuroClean. PuroClean is the paramedics of property damage. It provides water damage remediation, flood water removal, fire and smoke damage remediation, mold removal, biohazard cleanup. It also has a focus on veteran franchisees. You can learn more about them by going to puroclean.com. We want to welcome to Veterans Radio today Brigadier General Richard S. Miller, retired. Dick Miller's a friend of Veterans Radio and has his multiple hats that he wears that bumps him into our orbit. He is the president of NVBDC, the nation's leader in certifying veteran-owned businesses. But we're having Dick on today to talk a little bit about his military career and his position as president of AUSA Region 2. Dick, welcome back to Veterans Radio.
Well, thank you. Good morning.
Well, let's start with this. How does a nice kid from Shelbyville, Indiana, end up spending his career in the Army? And did you have to do this because a judge chased you into it, or what? How'd this happen?
It's funny, as you and I are both of the era where I know a guy actually that happened to. You got a choice, young man. But no, I end up I graduated from school in 1970 and had no future. I mean, I didn't have the grades to go to college. I didn't want to work in a factory, and the Army was a good option for me. And so I joined, which was rare back in 1970, and spent 2 years, was actually stationed in Germany. Surprising I didn't get to go to Vietnam, but got out, went to school, and then in 1980, I walked in an Army recruiter and said I want to rejoin, and I'd like to go to OCS.
And from officer candidate school to brigadier general is quite a climb. Along the way, you picked up your bachelor's degree from Indiana University and a master's degree from U.S. War College. And you've had assignments all over the world.
Right.
While Germany was the first nice country they sent you to, they found a way to send you to the sandbox a couple of times as well to balance that
what's
out.
Funny about that is every assignment I had after that was not a very nice place. From the jungles of South America to anyway, I ended up in Afghanistan. I commanded all of southern Afghanistan out of Kandahar, and that was a nice place. But anyway, yeah, I was very, very lucky. Every assignment I had was a command assignment, which helped develop me for the next assignment. And after Afghanistan, I was a deputy chief of staff for the 38th Infantry Division, and then ultimately became the deputy commanding general.
And you spent, I think, your final tour, if you will, with the Indiana Army National Guard.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I was the Deputy Commanding General of the 38th Infantry Division. We had 14,100 roughly in that area.
well, I might not have the math right, but it looks like you spent about 34 years or something in one way or another in the Army.
33.
33. Okay, and along the way picked up all the sort of awards and decks that one might expect, from Combat Infantry Badge up to the Bronze Star, Meritorious Service Medal, campaign medals for Afghanistan, Global War on Terrorism, Army Commendation medals. All of that's just to sort of set you up for, I don't know, are we on chapter 3 or 4 of post-retirement, military retirement here? And your wife is saying, I kicked him out of the kitchen to go do something. I didn't know it was going to end up like this. You are spent a number of years working, I'm sure in a volunteer position initially, with AUSA. Tell us about AUSA, the Association of the United States Army.
Well, much like my military career, I started off with the Association of the United States Army as a chapter president. And that was a chapter in Indiana, of all things. And it's a very, very large, there are 1.8 million members of the association. And as a chapter, I think I had 256 people in the local chapter in Indianapolis. And then they had one in South Bend, Indiana. And then I was transferred to Michigan for a job change in 1984. And immediately was asked to join the chapter in Detroit. And that's kind of where I've been ever since. But just this is an organization, just for those who are not aware, that lobbies on behalf of the United States Army. The Army themselves cannot lobby Congress for anything. It's against the law. But we have very, very strong bonds with Congress and the Senate. And that's what we do. Not me personally, but we all within that organization. But it is a volunteer organization primarily. And just like me, most of these folks that serve, they serve because they want to serve their country and they want to serve their Army.
Well, it's a really inspiring story when you look at AUSA's history, and it's a nonprofit educational and professional development association that serves not only today's total Army, active duty soldiers, reservists, National Guard, veterans, retirees, Army civilians, and their families. It's that unique voice because of those 1.8 million members who have affiliation with the U.S. Army that you have sort of some clout on lobbying or expressing, hey, how do we help the troops? And that's really the goal, isn't it?
It is. The soldiers and their families. And, and by the way, the families have come into recognition in the last 15 years or so. People understand that if the soldiers aren't happy and the families aren't happy, it affects their performance. The region that I'm in, or the president of this second region, we have 415,000 members across Washington, D.C., Indiana, Kentucky, Maryland, Michigan, Ohio, Tennessee, Virginia, and West Virginia. So when we go visit the Hill and we want to go see those congressmen and senators, when you have 415,000 members, they tend to pay attention to you.
And is this all on like national defense policy issues, or is it troop pay or mental health? What issues does AUSA advocate for?
It's all the above. And, as a matter of fact, we were just now developing our 2025 focus areas. But if you look at it, it's readiness, it's training, it's National Guard state partnership programs, it's Army families, civilians, survivors, caregivers. It's anything having to do with the soldier and their family. And, housing is a big thing right now. There's a lot of criticisms. Some of the facilities are run down. And personnel pay and benefits, health care, housing, child care, education, Army civilians, which, by the way, there are thousands upon thousands of Army civilians. So you take Detroit,
Right,
Tarnick up there. The vast majority of the people on that base are civilians.
It's really interesting because a lot of these issues are things which the families or the troops might be reluctant to talk about up the chain of command, worrying about impacts maybe on careers. But AUSA can say, hey, this base housing has mold or these kind of problems, or you're not putting enough money into cleaning up environmental issues on base, or educational funding for the schools that the Army runs is slipping. We got to pull those services up. So it gives people another way to advocate for, I guess I'd call them sensitive issues.
Oh, yes. Just some of it's just basic day-to-day kind of stuff, but the other part of it is just that. Now, a soldier out there, just a normal soldier, is not likely going to be bringing that stuff up. Now, the AUSA, for example, down at Fort Knox is one of mine. I'll go down and meet with the commanding general at Fort Knox, and we'll discuss things. And by the way, not everything's contentious. Some of it's just basic stuff.
And supportive. Absolutely. Right. What you're able to do at AUSA is be supportive of issues that the Army wants advanced.
Yep. And then one of the big things right now, I mentioned Fort Knox, is what you call food insecurity. That's the big bullet item this year is food insecurity. There are a lot of these youngsters out there that, the pay isn't that great. It's not bad, but it's not that great. And then all of a sudden the guy's got a wife, couple kids, and can't barely make ends meet. And so we're putting together a really sophisticated program for food insecurity. You got to identify them first, because a lot of these folks are, embarrassed. They don't want to talk about it.
Certainly, yeah.
But that's where, for example, at Fort Knox, we have a partnership with Denny's. Denny's, the restaurant.
Yeah, restaurant chain.
We worked with Denny's down at Fort Knox last November to, they brought in their mobile kitchen, and we fed 900 soldiers in a single day, or actually single morning. And then we gave 250 meals to the Red Cross on post. So those are some of the kind of things that the AUSA does.
Well, again, those are the sorts of things that I think people don't, it all happens quietly in the background. The mobile kitchen shows up and nobody's paying attention to how that happened or why that happened. So getting the word out like this is really important. Tell us about your Region 2, and you've told us the states involved in Region 2 for ASU. How many regions are there, and what does being president of Region 2 deal with on a national basis?
Well, we have 9 regions, and we have a Pacific region, that's Alaska, Guam, etc., and then European region, which is Africa, Canada, Europe, Middle East, and then we have a 7th, which is out west, Scott Langley. California is its own region, and then 5th region, Illinois. There's a lot of. We're going to be looking at realigning this stuff, because some of these things just don't make any sense from a geographic standpoint. But
now, do each of the region presidents then sit on a national board? Is there a national governing body?
Yes.
How does that work?
Yes, each of the regions, we have a seat on the board of directors at the national level, and we attend meetings virtually, most of the time virtually. And then once a year we have an in-person. But we all get together and we all talk about the major issues affecting our soldiers. And, we actually do speaking engagements. We, promote and enhance the association's goals and objectives, all that sort of thing. I spoke at Western Michigan's ROTC program a week ago Friday. Those are the kind of things that we try to support the overall Army.
Well, and part of this too is just to get the word out to members, the families. Hey, there's somebody who's got your back. Um, Tons of resources are available on the AUSA website, which is simply ausa.org.
Correct.
I noticed that like it has an annual meeting, and the 2025 one is going to be October in Washington, D.C. of 2025. So lots of ways to get involved, a lot of professional development opportunities, which is really interesting. And I also found it interesting. Part of this is AUSA is focused on the total Army. So there's no distinction here about, oh, you were National Guard, oh, you were reservist, oh, you
Correct.
were active duty. And that cohesiveness is really important, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. Because, the war on terror just brought the units together. All the, throughout the National Guard, Army Reserve, everybody. When you're looking at the 38th Infantry Division, 100% of our soldiers deployed during the war on terror. Many of them multiple times.
Yeah, it really changed the way in which national defense is bolstered by the National Guard and Reserve. I don't think people fully appreciated that previously.
And at one point, the 38th Infantry Division, the only organization that had more combat infantry badges was the 101st Airborne. The 38th was second.
Well, that talks about the number of tours that it had to endure during that period. I do notice that there is a area for military families to get information on how AUSA helps in that regard, so I'd certainly direct people to that. And I also see that AUSA gives out scholarships, which is something that families are always interested in as they're trying to get kids maybe through college, and possibly that's also through a trade school, that sort of thing. Tell us about those kind of hidden programs that AUSA does, Dick, that people might not know about.
Well, as you said, the military families is a big one. And the military families with scholarships and all these sorts of things. They have a woman named Holly Daly that runs the family programs. And they have stuff going on all the time. Training events, forums, events, family resources. They'll, if a local area wants her to come out with her team, they'll be happy to do it. Health and wellness. The big thing is military spouse career and employment, helping a spouse become qualified to be able to, for example, help them write a resume. Now, the other big thing for families is financial readiness. There's a lot of folks out there that are, especially the young ones, are shy about asking for help. And they may need somebody to help them. Matter of fact, I know for a fact it was one of the things, helping a young lady balance a checkbook, if you will. The Child Education Coalition, there's a number of things that a soldier can reach out, and AUSA's got something for them.
Yeah, that financial readiness seems so simple, but we've all been in service with somebody who this is the first time in their life they got a paycheck with some money, and they spent it like drunken sailors.
Yes, exactly.
Speaking of myself, and it's only later that you said, I should have put a little bit of that away, because there's a time when this ends and I got to go do something else. But again, it can be as simple as, I've never managed money before, I've never had a checkbook before. So those kind of programs are really helpful to the young
Yep.
Army.
Well, one of the other things that AUSA does well is they support children education. The military educational system is pretty good. For example, I was, again, Fort Knox. Their high school is by comparison as good as any outside the military. And they take it serious. So there's a lot of stuff that the AUSA does. You mentioned our annual event is in October. For those who don't know, every defense contractor worldwide comes to this thing. It's in the convention center downtown Washington, D.C. On average, there's 30,000 people a day come through this thing.
Holy cow.
Yeah, it's huge. And we hold our annual meetings. We have like the regions, we all get together and we meet. And
if somebody's in one of these chapters or regions, and again, if you go to the website, you can find a chapter near you.
Right.
How does one say, hey, you know what, I should be involved in this? How do I become a member of AUSA and get involved?
Well, you can go out to for example, like second region. You can just go out to the second region area, or for example, Detroit, there's the Arsenal of Democracy chapter. And you can reach the chapters and then just call them up and say, or email, text, doesn't matter. Say, look, I really want to become a member of this. What do I got to do? They're always looking for volunteers.
Well, it's like most of life, right, Dick? The more you put into it, the more you get out of it.
Right.
As you move forward here, you're probably seeing the insides of the organization a little bit. We mentioned at the outset it's a nonprofit. So how does AUSA get funded?
Well, primarily corporate sponsors.
And that's what you'd expect. A little bit probably comes from membership dues and signing up for events.
Correct.
And paying, going to the annual meetings and those sorts of things. But
as a matter of fact, the annual meeting is a big opportunity to gain funding. But when you're looking at General Dynamics, you're looking at McDonnell Douglas and these major corporations. Keep in mind, we're a lobbying organization for Congress. And so they want to make sure that we represent them as well.
Oh, certainly, yeah. That makes sense on weapon systems and things like that, and the funding of programs. So we're talking to Dick Miller. He's the president of AUSA Region 2. He sits on the national board, and he's giving us some insights into what AUSA does and why it does it. Dick, any final comments here that you'd like to make to our Veteran Radio listeners?
Well, like I said, the AUSA is an organization supporting our soldiers, their families, pay, health care, all of those things that support the United States Army. Very complex program. Professional development. I mean, meetings and events, publications. By the way, they put out a really nice magazine every month. But nope, AUSA is a long-term, done a wonderful, wonderful job supporting our soldiers, and will hopefully continue.
So I'm going to direct people to ausa.org. Hit the About Us click on button there. It'll show you where you can jump over to join AUSA. I think you'd find it very beneficial if you want to continue your service to the country and service to the United States Army by being supportive. Dick, General Miller, we appreciate the time that you've made available for Veterans Radio today to talk about AUSA.
Well, thank you again, and look forward to working with you in the future.
And I want to thank everybody for listening to Veterans Radio today. I am Jim Fausone. It's been a pleasure to be your host. I'm a veterans disability lawyer at Legal Help for Veterans, and you can reach us at 800-693-4800 or legalhelpforveterans.com on the web. You can follow Veterans Radio on Facebook and listen to its podcasts and internet radio shows
by visiting us at veteransradio.org. That's veteransradio.org. We again want to thank our national sponsors, the National Veterans Business Development Council, nvbdc.org, Legal Help for Veterans, a veterans disability law firm with a national practice before the VA, can help you on your claims and your appeals. It can be reached at legalhelpforveterans.com or 1-800-693-4800. And PuroClean, a leader in property emergency services. It's the paramedics of property damage, providing water damage remediation, flood water removal, fire and smoke damage remediation, mold and biohazard cleanups. You can reach them at puroclean.com or 800-775-7876. We also want to thank our local sponsors. This would include the Charles S. Kettles chapter of the Vietnam Veterans of America, that's chapter 310, VFW Graf O'Hara Post 423, the American Legion Irwin Preskin Post 46 in Ann Arbor as well, the VA Ann Arbor Healthcare System, and certainly the National Vietnam Veterans of America Association. You can be a sponsor by going to veteransradio.org, clicking on the About Us and our sponsors, and help us out. Keep this program alive for the 21 and 22 years. Keep us going for another 20. Thank you.